All right, we're about to pull back the curtain on one of the most controversial tools in the entire digital world. It's this fascinating and kind of scary place where privacy, technology, and, yeah, crime all collide.
It all kicks off with this number. And honestly, it's a number that's hard to even wrap your head around. $622 million. And no, that's not some crazy tech startup valuation. That's the haul from one single massive digital heist.
So who's responsible? Well, the U.S. government points the finger squarely at one group, the Lazarus Group. You've probably heard of them. They're that infamous hacking syndicate linked to North Korea. They're the ones who pulled off the notorious Ronin bridge hack, walking away with over $500 million in crypto.
And that right there, that brings us to the biggest question. Really the whole point of this explainer. I mean, think about it. Every crypto transaction is supposed to be on a public ledger, right? So how in the world do you make that much digital cash just disappear? How do you launder it without leaving a giant trail? Well, the answer involves a very special kind of digital laundry machine.
And that machine, as you might have guessed, is called a cryptocurrency mixer. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of how it works, we need to do a quick refresh on the classic, old-school process of money laundering.
Okay, so traditional money laundering has 3 basic steps. Step 1 is placement. You gotta get the dirty cash into the financial system somehow. Step 2 is layering. This is where you create a total mess, a tangled web of transactions to hide where the money came from. And finally, step 3 is integration. The clean money comes back into the legitimate economy, ready for you to spend. Now the real magic, the key part for our story, is that middle step, layering. That's exactly where mixers do their work. And yeah, this is exactly where crypto mixers enter the picture. They are literally services built for that layering stage. What they do is take crypto from a whole bunch of different people, throw it all into a big pot, shuffle it around, and then spit out different unrelated coins to everyone. The whole goal is to break that chain of evidence on the blockchain. You gotta understand, these are tools built for one purpose, to hide things.
So let's get into it. How do these digital laundromats actually work? What's the tech that's making all this anonymity possible?
Okay, so they basically come in 2 main flavors. First, you have centralized mixers. Think of this like a black box run by one single company. You send them your coins, and you just have to trust that they'll send you back clean coins and won't keep any logs. It's a huge single point of failure. Then you have the decentralized mixers. These are totally different. They use peer-to-peer protocols and smart contracts. Now, they're way more resistant to being shut down, but they've got their own problems, right? Like, what if a bad actor joins the mix just to spy on what everyone else is doing?
And what's really wild is just how many different techniques are involved here. This isn't just one simple trick. I mean, look at this. This diagram, it's complex for sure, but it shows a whole ecosystem of methods, all of them designed to do one thing: create total chaos and confusion.
And these methods run the gamut, you know? You've got simple ideas like just swapping coins or adding random time delays. But then you have some incredibly complex stuff, like zero-knowledge proofs, or ZKPs. And ZKPs, man, they are fascinating. It's a way for a user to mathematically prove they put coins into the mixer without ever revealing which specific coins belong to them. It's kind of like proving you know a secret password, but without ever actually saying the password out loud. It's truly cutting-edge tech, and it's being used to create these digital black holes where money just disappears.
But all of this high-tech hiding leads to this amazing paradox, which this quote just nails perfectly. The blockchain is supposed to be the most transparent financial system ever, but it can also be one of the most opaque. It's all public, but that public data can just look like a wall of noise. So the big question becomes, how do investigators possibly turn all that noise back into a clear signal?
Well, here's the secret. The criminal's greatest weapon has a fatal flaw, and that flaw is the blockchain itself. The very transparency they're trying to escape is what trips them up. See, they leave digital fingerprints everywhere, and investigators have gotten really good at reading them, using a field of math that's been around for centuries, long before crypto was even a dream.
And that field is graph theory. It's a brilliant way to look at this problem. Investigators basically treat the entire blockchain like a giant social network map. Every single wallet address is a dot, what they call a node, and every transaction between wallets is a line connecting those dots, an edge. All of a sudden, what looked like random chaos starts to look like a map. You can see the connections, the relationships. So the first job for these digital detectives is to figure out which of those millions of dots belong to the same person.
And they have some clever tricks. One of the big ones is called common input ownership. Here's how it works. In Bitcoin, if you see one single transaction that pulls money from, say, 3 different addresses to make one payment, you can be 100% certain that all 3 of those addresses are controlled by the same person. You run these algorithms across the whole blockchain, and you can start collapsing thousands of different addresses into one single supernode that represents just one person or one criminal group.
And once they've identified that entity, that's when they start looking for patterns. Because criminals are creatures of habit. They use playbooks, and those playbooks create these really recognizable shapes on the network map. A perfect example is the peeling chain. You see it all the time. A hacker sends a huge stolen sum to one wallet. Then they peel off just a little bit to cash out at an exchange. The rest of it, they send it to a brand new wallet. And then they just repeat that process over and over and over. For an investigator looking at the graph, this pattern jumps off the page. It looks like a long, distinctive chain. It's a total dead giveaway.
So what you have is this constant, high-stakes, technological cat-and-mouse game. But it's not just code versus code. This fight is spilling out into the real world with very real consequences, especially now that regulators are finally starting to crack down.
Let's take a look at a real-world case, Blender.io. According to the US Treasury, this one mixer processed over $500 million in Bitcoin. And here's the kicker. It was accused of laundering more than $20 million from that giant North Korean Axie Infinity heist, the one we talked about at the very beginning.
And that connection is why this case is such a huge deal. In May of 2022, the US Treasury did something they'd never done before. They sanctioned Blender.io. They put it on a list, making it totally illegal for any US person or company to touch it. This was the first time ever that a regulator had sanctioned a crypto mixer. It was a massive shot across the bow to the entire industry.
But, of course, the story doesn't stop there. It never does. Soon after Blender got sanctioned, this new service called Sinbad.io just pops up. Regulators were immediately suspicious, alleging it was just Blender with a new coat of paint. And what do you know, about a year and a half later, bam, they sanctioned Sinbad too, and this time they seized its servers. It shows you the crackdown isn't static, it's adapting. And if you want to understand why regulators are taking this so seriously, you just have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. The United Nations estimates that something like 2 to 5% of the entire planet's GDP is laundered money every single year. We're talking up to $2 trillion. So crypto mixers might seem like a niche topic, but they're a very new, very powerful tool in this absolutely enormous global problem.
And all of this leaves us with a really tough, fundamental question. On one hand, you have people who argue that in our age of constant digital surveillance, tools like mixers are absolutely essential for basic financial privacy, which they see as a human right. But on the other hand, you have regulators and law enforcement who see these things as unavoidable tools for criminals, for rogue states, for terrorists. So the debate really boils down to this. Where do we, as a society, draw the line between privacy and security? And honestly, there's just no easy answer to that.